Hi, everyone. I'm Alana Campbell, and I'm a multidimensional health psychologist. And yesterday I delivered a talk to a group of women, and I realized that this talk is actually better suited if I split it into three. This is part one and the main section of the presentation. And what I was trying to introduce to the group was an introduction to esogetic medicine and MeridianWork. So in esogetic medicine, basically anything that stands out or that hurts in our body is an indication of something that may be stuck and how we can release it in order to shift into a new reality. And the reason this is important is because on a soul level, I believe we all want out of this cycle of reincarnation, which some people call samsara, which means that we're not learning our lessons. We just keep living life, and then we get to the end and then we have to do it all over again. And I think we all want to do better with our lives. I think we all want to grow. I think we all want to move on. I think we all want to see something new. So like soul contract, human design, astrology, and gene keys, which are other modalities that I use, our body tells us what we need to work on now in order to move forward in life. And esogetic is one way of doing that. So esogetic medicine can be seen as kind of like this developmental or imprinting history, or like how well did our attachment go? And that would like indicate where are all the problems. And it's really interesting because like you have a soul contract or you have an astrology chart that says these are your lessons, our experience prenatally in the womb encoded all of our lessons into our cellular body, so that our childhood experience is a lot of the problems are actually can be seen prenatally. And then whatever we don't resolve in childhood repeats itself in adulthood. So we really need to figure out, okay, how can we go and learn from this so that we can let it go and then have less what some people would call karma. So like I said, repeating experiences are an opportunity to complete the lesson from an old wound. And when we remove these blocks in our life, energy can flow better. And that can mean many things. One, it could be we know why we're here, and I'll get into that. Or it means when something happens, we know how to process that, take the information and act accordingly, move on. And I really find that when I'm applying the techniques, it feels like we're telling the body, now I'm listening, because for so long, the body talks to us through symptoms and we just ignore it, numb it, say, oh, give it another a label or a diagnosis or whatever, or I'm a victim to this thing, but we don't actually see it as communication from our body. But when we start to apply these techniques, it feels like we are now going to go back into communication with our body and work as a team. And from an esogetic standpoint, when we are operating in alignment with our life plan, then we're connected to source, then source is supporting our health. Because I think that we agreed to come here to learn some lessons. And if we're not doing that because we got so sidetracked, then our soul spirit starts to give up on the life, starts to withdraw. We start to have health problems because there's no point in continuing in a life that's making no progress. Like, it's better to kind of pack it up and go for the next life from a soul spirit perspective. But hopefully whatever we learn in that deteriorating end of life can be applied to the next life as in like encouragement, motivation to actually learn our lessons next time around. And it is very important with esogetic medicine to follow what the body is saying and not the mind. And what that means is we may say, well, I have this symptom. Is there a treatment for this symptom? And I'm just going to apply it. But the thing is, a lot of people can have the same symptom, but the way they got that symptom and what their body's trying to communicate to them through that symptom could be very different. And if you don't apply the treatment that matches how the body is speaking, then it may not be very successful. And so these two images kind of give you a little bit of an example of how the framework of esogetic medicine could work. So this is the developmental path in a way. So prenatally, we have this sort of path that we're going to be on. And in the first 3 years, this is the endocrine line. We're supposed to download our life program. But if our first 3 years were not calm and loving and supported and safe, then we were fighting for survival or worried or not grounded, not in our body. We didn't download our program. And then here we have what's called the toxic line, which means that when things happen to us, if we had somebody there who could say, oh, I understand that this is happening to you, this is how you can deal with it, this is how you can navigate it, that could support our process and be understanding and loving, which most of us don't have because most parents don't know how to do that, then we end up with illnesses. So you could have chronic sore throats, chronic congestion, chronic earaches, very common in children, chronic fevers. And this is just their body is physically processing the emotions or the stress or the experiences that they're not able to verbally work out with a loved one. And then the third category would be basically these people forget any story behind their illness. They think, oh, I just got ill. I don't know how it happened. And nothing actually just happens. It develops from something. So, I didn't know why I was here. I wasn't living my life plan. I, got ill so many times that I just started to forget about even being ill. It just seemed normal for me. And then my body starts to degenerate. And I think, well, my childhood, I think was fine. I don't remember. Like we just forget. And so these are the different states we can be in. And based on what state we are in, we would choose the treatment that might be the best fit to move the energy so that we can see, okay, what's the next step? And here's another way the treatments can be divided up. So these would be the toxic, so moving things through the lymphatic system, which could also be through like any congestion in the head, any congestion in the chest, any congestion in our digestive system. Coordination is getting all the brain areas to work well together, even getting like the belly brain, our instincts to work well with our head brain. This would be the endocrine system and also the autonomic nervous system, so our stress response and all that kind of stuff. And then the organ system, if we're in that state where organs are shutting down because we just haven't listened, not enough self-care, then we may treat at an organ level. And there's other ways to slice up the treatments. Now, if we move over to MeridianWork, the reason I incorporated MeridianWork, there's a couple of reasons. I think the first was because someone suggested to me that flower essences could be helpful for one of my children. And as I started to look into flower essences, I read this book and I realized that organs seem to go into self-destruct mode. And a personality that creates illness tends to lock the illness in. And I was treating a client at the time, and it was just their illness. It makes sense why they have their illness because their personality is a match for that illness. And it's really hard to treat this illness because their personality is like basically causing it to not budge. It's just holding it in place no matter what treatment we throw at it. And so I'm hoping that things like flower essences and esogetic medicine can help break this cycle of this personality has like created this nest of an issue, and maybe we can break out of it using these methods. And also when we work with meridian points, like a meridian point, you can feel, it feels different than other parts of your body. And you can tune into these points and it allows you to connect to your energy and communicate with your energy flow. And I think that's really important. So this is an example of my meridian work. And this is an article that I wrote. So you can click on that link and visit it. And so basically I had pain in my shoulder, which I've had for a long time, on and off. And so what you can do, one of the easiest things you can do is try to balance it. So here I'm balancing it with esogetic crystals. So you can put the silver crystal on top of where it hurts. And then on the opposite side, but at the same point, you put the gold crystal. So this calms down the pain and activates the other side to help out to create balance. There's also these other 4 crystals, which I'll share with you so you have a better understanding of the esogetic model. So these are called soul spirit crystals. And so that deals with like the spirit information, why am I here, and the soul emotional side of things, as opposed to the physical. And so this would be crimson, fire. This is light green, earth, and this is light turquoise, air, and this is rose, water. And so these are the astrological elements. They're also the TCM elements, but there's a slight switch because in TCM there's actually 5 elements. So they've moved some things around to kind of make it work. And that's common in spiritual work, is that things shift a little bit to make it all work. And then the bottom here is 3 gray colors. So when we're talking about color light, grays tend to be used for those instances where the person has been ignoring the issue for so long that the organs have stopped listening. And so when you try to treat them, the organs are just not listening. And so we have to wake those organs back up. When it comes to crystals, often they're used for centering and grounding, very strong kind of energy. So as I was building this presentation, I ended up with pain in my left hip. And so the first thing I did was I applied Esogetic oil and then Restore Chi cream. And Restore Chi will be in another presentation, but I will introduce it here. So the Esogetic oil helps us understand why. What's the story behind this? Why am I having this pain? Whereas the Restore Chi cream is more, let's heal it. So it looks like just normal cream, but what Master Yan, creator of Restore Chi, has done is he's purified it and he's applied his own healing to it, which is basically waking up the cells to do their job of detoxing and bringing in nutrients so that it can heal. So this is treating on a physical and treating on the soul spirit information level. And you'll see this again and again. There's always not just hitting it with at one level, physically or emotionally or psychologically, but with multiple levels. And that's why I'm a multidimensional health psychologist. Okay, so that's the first thing I did. The second thing I did was I applied a treatment that's in this book. And I'm going to show you the tools that I used to do this treatment so that you can see what it's like. So this is called an energy reflector stick. One side is just a wooden probe. The other side has a little crystal on it, which has, the way it's cut has the earth hologram on it, which is the same as the crystals I showed you previously. And this hologram helps us be here. These two, one is infrared and one is ultraviolet. Infrared penetrates deeply into the cells. Ultraviolet helps us understand why. So again, you see that dichotomy or that polarity. This is the most common tool in Esogetic. Some clients will actually buy their own lights so that they can treat themselves. So I can provide them with the treatments to do, and then they do it themselves. And so this is the rainbow colors or spectral colors. These are glass rods that insert into this flashlight. And then these are additional rods. So the top 3 are the gray rods. And then these 4 are those soul spirit rods. And so this is the treatment that's in this book right here. So the first step is to address it at the brain level. So to connect the emotional brain and the information brain together and other layers of brains. And then here, this is connecting or waking up or speaking to the thalamus and the medulla. And so the thalamus is seen as the seat of consciousness because this is where all of our sensory information goes to, and we decide what's important to pay attention to. So our perception of things really drives our experience, our health, our body, our reactions. So that's the thalamus level. And the medulla level, in this instance, he's using it for, this is how the brain communicates through the spinal cord and into the organs. Not always how he uses the medulla, but that's how he's using it here. And then this is additional treatments that can be applied if the first treatments don't work. And so this is very common for esogetic medicine, is we try the basics. Does it work for you? And if not, okay, then we deepen it a little bit. So this is sort of deepening versions of these prior treatments. Here you can see we treat the front. That's the layer 1. But if the front alone doesn't work, we add the back. And this is very common because in Esogetics, here's the main center, but if that's not where it's at, maybe it's in the shadow side, which could be at the back. And then he also has this concept of a folded man. So my hip is what was hurting, my sacroiliac joint. And when he folds the man down, this is the face. So he's saying that this type of hip issue is related to perception because this is the face perceiving. So the way I was perceiving something is not working for me. It needs some adjustment. So here is the treatment in addition to treating the head. So we treated the head and the medulla thalamus. And now he says, okay, for the sacroiliac joint, we actually treat the clavicle. So it's also common that he doesn't treat exactly the area. He treats so in this model, he says converter model. So it's trying to get energy to the area that's in pain, because the pain is because it doesn't have energy. So we treat kind of like another area to either expand out and create space, or to bring that energy through. So we treat these 2 points. And if you read the fine print here, it says that if it's your left hip, which is the case for me, then it's a liver issue, or it could be a liver issue. And if it's the right hip, then it could be a stomach pancreas issue. And what's interesting is this is the liver one. So you treat here, and then they say also treat here if it's your left hip. And this point here is very similar to the shoulder point I was treating earlier. And this is very common in esogetic medicine. It's probably a little bit lower, where you treat one thing and now the pain moves. And in some cases that's annoying, because it's like, I just want to get rid of the pain. But in other cases, we want to really get rid of the pain, which means we need to follow the trail and figure out, okay, what's this deeper story? So here we are, liver is paired with gallbladder and esogetics. After I did this treatment, I got a really strong signal that I needed to drink water. I was really thirsty and I needed to self-care. And after I drank water, I developed a headache. And so here's the gallbladder meridian, or at least the top half of it. And because there's so much in the head area, this is a really good meridian to work with when you have headaches. So I'm not going to do it because I don't want to make a rattling sound with the earphones, but you can follow. So you start here and you can follow the meridian. So look at the picture and you'll go like up and down and around the ear, not right against the ear, like give some space because there's another meridian that goes around the ear closer, and then go back over the top and then down. So I mean, literally, I'm not even touching, but I can feel the energy of following that meridian. So you could do that if you wanted to, but I find it very effective if you're actually putting pressure and following these lines. And I would follow the line, at least the whole head and down, like the top part of your body, but you could follow all the way past the hips, and then you could look up the leg part of the meridian and follow all the way down to the feet. And so this is a yang meridian. And what the yang meridians do is they pull the fire out of the head. So pull the energy out, which clears the headache. And interestingly, as I was putting this presentation together, my 10-year-old son came home and said, I have a headache. And I said, try this. And he did. And the headache cleared. So it's kind of neat that it also works on him. Okay. So as the prior, what we were just treating was the gallbladder meridian. In this book, I looked up, okay, well, what flower essences do they have that resonate with the gallbladder meridian? And there were 3. So I just pulled this one out as an example. And I looked into this book as well. And so you can see like exactly where is this point. And I find if you flare up your toes a little bit, you'll see the tendon and the bone kind of create this little triangle point in this area. And you can feel this little divot. And I really do recommend you kind of feel for that, because this is you connecting with your energy. So some people say the meridians, they don't physically exist. They're on the 4th dimension. And that is kind of like the bridge to our other dimensional selves. So it's interesting to get in touch with this. And then in this book, I know the print is too small, but I'll summarize it for you. This point, and using a beach flower essence, is about when we're very critical of other people and when we're very harsh with ourselves in order to set boundaries. And so I didn't apply this treatment until after the next few steps, but I will share now, just because this is the page we're on. Part of the issue with my shoulder had to do with someone who had beach in their name. And I thought that I was over this, but I have before thought I was over this and realized that nope, still have triggers in me on this issue. And yeah, it did cause me to be pretty harsh with myself to set some boundaries. So I did end up treating this area, and it was only in treating this area and like going through the actions that I was able to retrieve that memory and information and be kind with myself on another layer. And so previously, when I had issues like this, I didn't know this meridian stuff. So I treated it with another layer of Esogetics, which is using brainwave programs. So Esogetics has, let's say, 40 brainwave programs you can use. And this is because Peter Mandel, founder of Esogetic's belief is that any illness first starts with the brain waves getting dysregulated. So what I mean is, the beta and alpha waking brain waves and the theta and delta sleeping brain waves. And then there's also a gamma brain wave. And so this program is actually focused on that gamma, and it's focused actually on the gamma 40 hertz. And that's because that frequency has been found to be really helpful in people who have congestion in the brain. And there's a book called Angel or Assassin, and it's about the neuroglia in the brain and how it can be switched to angel mode where it's supporting, or assassin mode where it's like literally taking out the brain. And so this brainwave can kind of correct that to make it more like, let's clear the garbage and let's support our brain tissue. And so I would run it on my face to kind of clear, because I used to have a lot of congestion issues. I would run it on my face and then here, which drains the brain of its congestion. And that really changed my life. So whenever I would have issues that come up and I'm like, oh my God, why this again? I would just run it and would change my perspective on things. And all of these are different ways you can run the same program. So this is running it on your sinuses and on kind of like the drainage of your lymph from your head. But you can also run it on your temples, which would address the amygdala area. And it's especially good for chronic stress or a childhood that was very stressful. You can run it on your hips, which I didn't do in this case, but maybe I could, which has to do with your life program, because in theory, when we're born, that's when our hips first open. It's like, now walk your life. We've been programmed through the prenatal time, now go and walk your life. And then here you can treat the front of the ankle and the back of the calves. And this has to do with the pre-existence time. So Esogetic medicine is not just about prenatal and life, but also before life. Some of us get pulled into lifetimes because it's just our time and we didn't go so willingly. Some of us didn't exit the last life in the best way, so we're dragging through more fears than we need to. So this kind of cleans up that between lives space. And then this treatment is treating on the heels, which has to do with that thalamus space and perception. So again, you see kind of like, this is childhood, this is now, this is before life, this is now, you see that repeating. And then this diagram also shows up in the brochure. So I included it because it shows like the yang energy is trying to come in and it's called the weak force, and the yin energy is coming up from the bottom, and it needs to meet in the middle for us to have balance. And when we don't have balance, this is something that Master Yan from Restore Chi is getting into, where like I had a neck pain and he said it's because I had too much yang in the back. And so he was able to fix that. And I'll get into Restore Chi in the Restore Chi presentation. But a lot of people can have too much yang in the head or too much yin in the bottom. So you need that balance. And so there are esogetic ways of addressing it. But the reason I use Restore Chi, just to give you a little teaser, is sometimes it's faster. And I really want clients to get faster results on the bigger issues, and then we can go slowly with kind of the more subtle things. Okay. So I wanted to share that I don't do this alone. I list some outside referrals on my website. A really big one is the medical medium, because this is all about self-care and getting nurturing from food and supplements, and working with Rose, who you would get to if you clicked on this link, helps you find like, you don't need to do everything, but here are the key things to do, and here are good prices for good quality. Yes, so my kids are here.
Mommy, what did you, there's nothing what you did.
You can draw on here, okay? Oh no, not on this one. You can draw on this one, okay? But can I finish this presentation? I'm almost done. Okay. Okay, after I'll come look for you and you can talk to me, okay? Okay, thank you. Okay, so medical medium is great. Saved my life several times in the past couple of years when I had symptoms. I just reach out to Rose and she gives me some really good advice. Because sometimes what we know is not what's going to work, and so it's good to have many ways to address things. And so there's lots of things here. A couple of things to speak to. When I was doing the gamma treatment, I would also do these colonic hydrotherapies, because when you can remove the garbage from your body, you no longer vibrate to attract those frustrating experiences. They can clear from your life because you're kind of saying, you know, I'm done with this. So that was really helpful up until I couldn't tolerate it anymore, because my body had gotten to a point where I should know better. I should know techniques to help my body clear these things rather than having somebody remove these things for me. And then, so the other thing to mention here is that the treatments I didn't clear the pain fully. Like the pain moved, and I went to a chiropractor, and there's nothing wrong with this. So we're not trying to replace standard treatment. We're trying to get the most out of the experience. So it's not just, oh, my hip hurts and I'm going to a chiro and it's fixed and I'm done. It's, let me see the story behind this so it can fully heal at a deeper level. And so what the chiropractor told me was my pain in my hip might have been due to sitting too much. And so this goes back to that book originally that got me into this MeridianWork in a way, because the organs, the personality locks that illness in, is sitting too much falls right here. The abuse of the seated position, which is having to do with the spleen. And so that I'll get to when I talk about Restore Chi. But often my issues are on the liver, gallbladder, and that has to do with ocular abuse, because I spend a lot of time studying and I abuse my eyes. And apparently also I abuse sitting. And actually that is, in a way, a good reminder, because when I had the neck pain and before Master Yang came into town and was able to correct that yin yang balance, I was doing a lot more movement to try to help move it as best I can in that way. And I haven't been doing that as much lately. So it's a reminder to get that back into my life. And I did go for a walk today to kind of get that going. So I think that is good for this presentation, and I will pick up later to introduce Restore Chi, which is another obviously thing that I use as an outside referral, you know, and I'll get into that next time I present that. And then I'll also show you how to assess yourself using esogetic medicine. Thank you. And it sounds like my kids need me now. Okay.